tell me, I want to start a business today. What advice can you give me?
Start. I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we have is most of us are afraid of starting something. And the reason we are afraid of starting something is because we're exposed to this data that tells us that 90% of or 80% of what people starts literally crashes. They don't go anywhere. While that might be true, if you are working today, you are working at some place that somebody else started. So that means that there's a 20% of chances of you being able to succeed. That's the first thing. The second of all is I don't believe in failure. There's always a lesson that you can learn, even if you were not able. I've seen people that started, like, let me give you an example of a company that we are all aware of. It's called Orange in Africa. When these guys came in Africa, they were selling cell phones. They were literally a device seller. After a while, they're like, hey, you know what? The cell phone stuff, it's only two people are dominating the markets, which is Apple and Samsung. So how were they going to make a living? They decided to become a network service provider. So they start selling Les Unités card, for you to be able to put. Right. And then eventually they're like, hey, you know what? There's not a lot of money into this. They switched to something else. But lastly, what did they become? They finally became a telecommunication company. So if you don't want to be dynamic, you're going to get stuck. It's good to get started. If it doesn't work, switch it up. If it doesn't work, switch it up. If it doesn't work, switch it up. Most recently, I became aware, like McDonald's, the restaurant channel. I hope the folks at McDonald's are not watching this, just in case I get the data wrong. I became aware, like when we go to McDonald's, most of us think that we are going to a restaurant chain, to a food chain, right? But did you know that they were actually registered as a real estate company?
Really?
Talk about
at
it.
first.
They're still a real estate
Still
company.
today?
Yeah.
And talk about
Let's
it.
talk about Tesla. Many of us, when you think about Tesla, what are you thinking of? You are thinking about the car.
Electrical car.
But they actually register as a software company. So it's just do it. If it doesn't work, change it up. Nobody, just give yourself that sense of pride of saying, hey, it may never work, but at least I started it. There are people that have had some very good idea. You've heard the famous story about Apple, who started Apple. It didn't work. It didn't work. Steve Jobs started it. They're like, hey, man, we're not liking what you're bringing to the table. They push him on the side. You've heard the big technologies such as Xerox, how they started with the mass creation and things like that. So I always tell the youth, try it. There's never losing. If anything, you're gonna acquire an experience that the person that never tried will never have. So that's one of the advice that I tell people. And the other thing is, do not neglect skills. Surround yourself with people that are where you're trying to go. I'm a big believer of your network is your net worth. If you don't want to surround yourself with people that are up to something, you'll be up to nothing. So just try.
Can you say that one more time, please? Can you say that again?
If you are not surrounded by folks that are up to something, you'll be up to nothing. So surround yourself with people that are inspiring you. Read a lot of books, because I don't want to sound shady. A lot of the information that we had learned in Congo, how much of what you learned in Congo you have been able to apply in society? As a matter of fact, some of us even have gone to acquire even degrees. You bring them in the US and they're like, no, we don't trust you to touch somebody that's sick. So you're like, man, at least I'm intelligent. You're not allowing me to touch somebody who's sick, So you have to be willing to pay the price of learning something new, pay the price of starting something new. Surround yourself with me. I call, like, hey, I'll pick up my phone. I'm like, I saw you on YouTube. Can I shadow you? Can I talk to you? Can I learn from you? They may say yes, and they may also say no. But at least I know I tried my part. I made that phone call. I took that bold step of faith.
Man, this is a pastor talking, not really an entrepreneur. This is a pastor talking.
Adaptability.
I'm not giving any verses yet.
This is a pastor talking.
I don't know, Mordecai. I feel adaptability is key.
It's bringing me to say, you have like young people in your church. How do you guide them? Because entrepreneurship is very good. Because I was going to a church on Wednesday when there's church service. You don't find many people. All of them are stuck in jobs, Amazon or whatsoever, they cannot, even myself, I cannot attend Wednesday services,
Right.
Because we are stuck in something that you're doing. So how can you, help the youth in your church in order to have more free time, have that freedom to come to church, to come to services? How do you attack those kind of problems?
Well, one of the things that I'm a firm believer of, you cannot guide somebody that doesn't want to be guided. So the person must first understand, they have to learn themselves enough to be able to come at the place where they feel like they need help. Because I've seen a lot of people, you see so much potential in them. You really do see it. It's up there. But they don't know they have those potentials in themselves.
Yeah.
So if you start going to them, hey, come here, let me show you how to do IT. Come here, let me show you how to do taxes or transportation. They'll be like, what's wrong with this guy? I'm perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that I don't really try to put pressure on people, but I'd rather just let my light shine. I'll invite you to my place. You come, you see me like, oh, okay. It's not in an apartment, it's into a home. Hoping that you'll go like, hey, brother, how can I purchase my own house?
Okay.
Those small things. Just try to present myself at the best version of myself. Hopefully they find me interesting enough to the point where they'll be able to interact with me. A lot of times, sometimes we might find ourselves, we feel like we want to teach these children what to do. When there's always a thing or two that we may also learn from them. So me, I always have an attitude of an ever student, of ever learning. My wife, sometimes she comes to me, she's like, babe, what are you reading? I'm like, this random book. I like the title. I don't know the author, but it's just I want to put myself into an environment where I'm ever learning, because you can never go wrong with a lot of information.
Sure.
But if you are lacking information, you might find yourself into a lot of troubles.
Definitely.
So I think that's my attitude to a lot of the youth, is to project excellency and hoping that they will be able to see it in you eventually.